Let me tell you something strange about people who procrastinate. Not the cartoon version you see in memes, not the lazy stereotype, the real version, the one that lives inside your chest. Because if you've ever stared at a task for hours, scrolled your phone, opened and closed the same app 5 times, walked around your room, made food you weren't even hungry for, and still couldn't start, you know this isn't simple. From the outside, procrastination looks like not caring. From the inside, it feels like drowning. This is the truth about procrastination. We live in a world that worships productivity. Do more, faster, earlier, always. So when you procrastinate, it feels like you're failing the basic test of being a functional human. You hear phrases like, just start, just do it, just focus. But here's the quiet truth. If it were as easy as just, you would have done it by now. Procrastination isn't a lack of intelligence. It's not even always a lack of motivation. Most of the time, it's a clash between your brain and your emotions, between what you know you should do and what you feel capable of doing in that moment. People who procrastinate often know exactly what needs to be done. They can describe the steps, they can explain the deadline, they can list the consequences, and yet their body doesn't move. That's the part nobody talks about. The paralysis, the invisible freeze. You don't sit there thinking, I'd rather ruin my life than start this task. You sit there thinking, I'll start in 5 minutes. And 5 minutes quietly multiplies. There's a concept in psychology called task aversion. It's not just about the task itself. It's about how the task makes you feel inside. If a task makes you feel stupid, overwhelmed, exposed, judged, or afraid of failure, your brain learns to see it as a threat, not a lion kind of threat, but a shame kind of threat. Old parts of your nervous system don't know the difference. They just know this feels bad, this feels dangerous. So they whisper, not now, later, escape. Scrolling feels safer than starting. Cleaning your room feels safer than opening the document. Watching one more video feels safer than seeing what you're actually capable of. People who procrastinate often care too much, not too little. They care about doing it well. They care about not messing up. They care about how they'll be seen if the result is mediocre. Perfectionism and procrastination are quiet twins. If you believe something has to be amazing, flawless, impressive, or worth it to even try, your brain will stall because perfect is heavy. Starting badly feels like proof you're not enough. So you wait for the perfect mood, the perfect burst of energy, the perfect timing, the perfect version of yourself that doesn't actually exist. People say, you procrastinate because you're lazy. But look at what actually happens. You procrastinate on one important task. Then you suddenly have the energy to do 5 unimportant ones. You reorganize your apps. You wipe the counter. You watch tutorials for hobbies you won't start. You become busy in every direction except the one that matters. That's not laziness. That's fear in motion. Underneath procrastination, there's often a deep story about worth. If I try my best and still fail, what does that say about me? If I put in real effort and it's still not good enough, what's left of my identity? So instead, you delay. Because as long as you haven't really tried, you can tell yourself, I could have done better if I really wanted to. Effort becomes dangerous. It becomes the thing that could expose the truth you're afraid of. What if my best isn't enough? So you protect yourself with, I didn't really try. It hurts less to fail as the person who procrastinated than as the person who gave everything and still fell short. This is why people who procrastinate often seem chill on the surface. The jokes, the memes about not starting, the haha, I'm so last minute. Underneath, there's usually a knot of anxiety, guilt, self-blame, and a quiet voice that says, "What's wrong with me?" Here's the thing. Your brain is not built to respond to vague, giant tasks. Write the paper. Fix my life. Get in shape. Start the project. Your brain looks at that and goes, too big, too blurry, too scary, so it shuts down. People who procrastinate often carry huge expectations on their back. They don't break tasks into small pieces, not because they can't, but because they think they shouldn't have to. I should just get it done. I should be able to handle this. I shouldn't need to make it easier. But that should voice is harsh. It doesn't motivate, it shames. Shame doesn't push you forward. Shame freezes you. Every hour you don't start, the shame grows. And as shame grows, starting gets even harder. You're not just facing the task anymore. You're facing your own disappointment in yourself. So you avoid both. There's also the weird adrenaline of last-minute work. If you've ever left something until the night before and then suddenly became a machine, you know that feeling. Panic kicks in. The deadline becomes real. Your fear of consequences finally outweighs your fear of starting. And suddenly, you can focus. You say, "Look at me when I'm under pressure. I'm unstoppable." But here's the cost: exhaustion, anxiety, and a nervous system that only learns to move when it's on fire. Your brain starts to associate productivity with crisis. No crisis, no action. So without drama or chaos, regular tasks feel flat, lifeless, impossible to approach. People who procrastinate often feel like they only have two modes: nothing or emergency. Calm, steady progress feels like a myth. It's not that they can't work, it's that they don't know how to work without being afraid. There's another layer: emotional overload. When your life is full of stress, family, finances, relationships, health, your brain is already carrying a heavy load. Then you add, start this task on top. It doesn't land on an empty plate. It lands on a plate that's already overflowing. So your mind says, later, not because it doesn't matter, but because right now, survival feels more urgent than progress. Sometimes, procrastination is your brain saying, "I'm overwhelmed. I don't have the capacity you think I have." But instead of hearing that as a signal to adjust expectations, you hear it as a moral failure. So you push harder, judge yourself more, and get stuck deeper. Here's what most people don't realize about chronic procrastinators. They think about the task all the time, on the bus, in the shower, before bed, while laughing with friends. It's like a background app that never closes. You're not ignoring the task. You're haunted by it. The guilt doesn't leave you alone. Even when you're resting, you don't really rest. You're mentally punching yourself for not doing what you should be doing. So you end up in the worst of both worlds. You don't work and you don't relax. Just a constant low-level buzzing of, "I'm behind." People who procrastinate rarely feel like they deserve kindness. They think kindness would spoil them or make them even lazier. So they try to whip themselves into action with harshness. You're useless. You're pathetic. Get it together. But if being cruel to yourself worked, it would have worked by now. The truth is, your nervous system doesn't respond well to being attacked. It doesn't hear "you're trash" and think, "time to shine." It hears danger. It hears, "we're not safe inside our own head," so it retreats further. That's why sometimes, the more you hate yourself for procrastinating, the more you procrastinate. Because starting the task now means facing that whole storm of self-judgment. And who wants to walk into a storm willingly? There's also a quiet grief underneath it all. Grief for the person you thought you'd be by now. The one who wakes up early, gets things done, keeps promises to themselves. Every time you procrastinate, it feels like you're letting that version of you die a little more. People who procrastinate are often mourning their own potential in secret. They look at old goals and think, I could have been so much more by now. That hurts. So instead of facing that pain, they escape into distractions. Distractions are not just entertainment. They're anesthesia. They numb the ache for a little while. The truth about people who procrastinate is this. They are not broken. They are stuck between fear and desire, between high standards and low energy, between I know what I need to do and I don't know how to face what doing it will make me feel. They are often thoughtful, intelligent, creative, and deeply self-aware, sometimes too self-aware. They can see every possible outcome, every angle, every what if. So instead of taking the first small step, they get lost in mental simulations of the entire journey, and the journey looks exhausting, so they never begin. If this is you, you need to hear something clearly. You are not lazy. You are not hopeless. You are not beyond repair. You are someone whose nervous system learned to survive discomfort by avoiding it. You are someone who learned that effort is risky, that trying means exposing yourself. You are someone who has been carrying heavy expectations with very little emotional support. Procrastination is not your identity, it's a pattern, and patterns are learned, which means they can be unlearned, not by flipping a switch and becoming a robot, but by understanding what you're really afraid of, not by calling yourself names, but by learning to work with your brain, not against it. The truth is, people who procrastinate are often capable of incredible things when the conditions are right, when the task feels meaningful, when the steps feel clear, when the stakes feel safe enough to try, when they feel supported, not shamed. You've seen glimpses of that version of yourself, the all-nighter where you pulled off something impressive, the day you finally started and got more done in 2 hours than you had in 2 weeks. That person is not a fluke. That's you, without the weight of fear crushing your first step. So the next time you feel yourself avoiding, try this. Instead of asking, what's wrong with me? Ask, what about this task feels threatening? Is it fear of being judged? Fear of not doing it perfectly? Fear of wasting effort? Fear of finding out what you're really capable of? Name the fear. Because once it has a name, it's not a fog anymore. It's something you can work around. The truth about people who procrastinate is that they are often deeply human. They feel deeply. They think deeply. They dream deeply. They are not empty. They are full of ideas they haven't started, full of stories they haven't written, full of projects they haven't finished, not because they don't want to, but because somewhere along the way, they learn to fear the path between intention and action. So if you are that person, this is not another lecture. It's a reminder. You are not alone in this. You are not some strange malfunction. You are a person who got stuck in a loop. And loops can be broken, not with violence against yourself, but with curiosity, with smaller steps than you think should be necessary, with gentler expectations, with the courage to start ugly, start scared, start imperfect. Because in the end, the truth about people who procrastinate is this: they are not people who don't care about their lives. They are people who care so much that the weight of doing life right sometimes pins them to the floor. And maybe the first step out is not to become someone else entirely, but to whisper to yourself, I'm allowed to try in small, clumsy ways. I don't have to earn the right to begin. I am more than the tasks I've delayed. And even if you've postponed 1,000 things, there is still one thing you can do now. Not tomorrow, not in an ideal mood. Now, take one tiny step, not to prove your worth, but to remind yourself that beneath the fear and the delay, you are still capable of moving, of choosing, of changing the story, one small, imperfect action at a time.